Greetings. You've doomed yourself already.
So the idea of this build is to build up your combo points by using your basic attack, Puncture, until you have 3 combo points. This either requires you to hit 3 times, or you get lucky and proc your unique and get 3 combo points with 1 hit. Once you have your 3 combo points, you could either choose to use Cold Imbuement or Shadow Imbuement, depending on the situation. If you have a big clump of enemies, I would use your Shadow Imbuement, follow it up with a Penetrating Shot. With your key passive and your aspects, you should be able to one-shot the pack of enemies that you are fighting. It is important to know what imbuement to use and when. By using Cold Imbuement, you could help build up the chill on an enemy and freeze them, or use your Frostborn or Frostburn gloves to freeze them, proccing your Godslayer helmet. That should pull all the enemies into the elite pack. And if you follow that up by a penetrating shot with Shadow Imbuement, you should be able to easily wipe out the whole pack with 1 hit. It's also important to know when to switch between penetrating shot and rapid fire. You'll learn this by just playing over time. Usually if there's only 1 or 2 elite packs left, or if all the elite packs are kind of spread apart and you can't pull them together, then I would just stick to rapid fire. But if you just walk in a circle and then turn on a sharp angle, the enemies will usually follow you in a straight line, allowing you to follow with a penetrating shot. But for uber bosses and single elites, I would stick with rapid fire. Something you'll notice is that single target damage is quite low on this build, so might be a little struggle at times, but thanks to your pet, he should help with your single target damage. Another good thing is both Shadow Imbuement and your Cold Imbuement can apply a chill effect, allowing you to build that breaker bar on a boss. So one of the reasons why our single target damage sucks on uber bosses is because I don't think the chill effect actually applies to the boss until you break his CC bar or whatever they call it. So a lot of our bonus damage from chilled or freeze is not applied, so we do lose out on a lot of damage there. But with that being said, the pet does help with that damage, making it possible for us to kill uber bosses in a reasonable time. So for our basic skill, we're going to get Puncture and upgrade it to Fundamental Puncture. This is going to help us apply vulnerability. Then moving on to our core skills, we're actually going to get 2 core skills, Rapid Fire and Penetrating Shot, and we're going to want to max out both of them. Rapid Fire is for our single target damage, while Pen Shot is going to be used for our AoE damage. We're going to upgrade Rapid Fire to Improved Rapid Fire. This will help us sustain our rapid fire during boss fights. For Penetrating Shot, we're going to get Improved Penetrating Shot for the crit chance. Then we're going to get Shadow Step. We're only going to put 1 point here and not upgrade it, as we are spreading ourselves pretty thin with our points because we're choosing to max out 2 core skills. So 1 point here, and this is just for the Unstoppable. For our next skill, we're going to get Shadow Imbuement and max it out, and then upgrade it to Mixed Shadow Imbuement. And we're only going to put 1 point here and then upgrade it to Mixed Cold Imbuement. Even though this is a Frozen Archer build, We're only going to put 1 point in here just so we can apply the chill, as we have other ways of applying a freeze thanks to one of our uniques that we'll go over later. Now we're going to go over some of the passives. We're going to max out Sturdy for the damage reduction, get Weapon Mastery for the damage against Vulnerable, get 1 point into Exploit, and then max out Malice again for the damage against Vulnerable, and then get Shadow Crash, max out Consuming Shadows to help us sustain our penetrating shot, and then we're going to max out Precision Imbuement for the crit chance, max out Frigid Finesse for the increased damage against chilled enemies, and this bonus is doubled against frozen enemies, 1 point in Intervention, max out Alchemist Fortune. I put 1 point in Second Wind. You don't have to, this is just an extra point I had floating around. So you can put this wherever you like. And then we're going to get Adrenaline Rush and then max out Impetus for the increased damage. Finally, for our key passive, we're going to get Victimize. Dealing direct damage to vulnerable enemy has a 45% chance to cause the explosion, dealing 23% of the original damage to them and surrounding enemies. Victimize damage is increased by 120% of your vulnerable damage bonus. With my current stats, this is 378%. And so the whole idea around this build is lucky hit and vulnerable. So those are the two main stats you really want to stack. And then moving on to our pet. I'm sure you guys seen videos of the pet soloing Duriel with the Firefly setup. I got this idea from Woody Joe. This is a very important skill to have on the build because we do lack a lot of single target damage. So having the Firefly here helps a lot when you're fighting Uber bosses. We're going to get Firefly with Seeking support, Multi-Shot support, and Piercing support. For our next Governing Stone, I chose to get Flash of Adrenaline, which gives us increased damage as a multiplier, with Safeguard support, Fortify support, and Tactical support. You can swap out Fortify support for Duration support to get 100% uptime on your Adrenaline. However, when I'm in high nightmare dungeons like 90 plus, I'm very squishy, so I chose to take Fortify to prevent any one shots, or not prevent all one shots. You still get one shotted, but help reduce the amount of times I get one shotted. If you're really struggling with survivability, then you can swap out Flash of Adrenaline for Reconstruct. I haven't unlocked any of the unique stones, but if you guys think it's better, then you can swap them out. But like I said, I would keep Firefly as is. Going over our gear and aspects, starting off with the uniques we'll be running on this build. For our helmets, we got Cal of the Nameless and Godslayer. By taking Cal of the Nameless, it will make the build flow much better, as a lot of our skills and aspects work off lucky hit chance, such as our heals and our gloves. It also gives you 4 to 6 ranks to our imbuements, which frees up a lot of skill points. However, if you pick Godslayer, it will greatly increase your damage, allowing you to burst down elite packs quickly and easily, even on 90 plus nightmare dungeons. I was able to complete all content in the game with either helmet, so it's your preference. The same goes for our gloves. By taking Grasp of the Shadow, it gives you 4 to 6 ranks to all core skills, freeing up space to put points into Chilling Weight passives, allowing us to easily freeze our enemies. However, the actual unique passive kinda sucks, as the Shadow clone doesn't utilize our combo points, so the damage output of it is pretty low. But by taking Frostburn, it gives us a chance to instantly freeze our enemies on lucky hit, plus the gloves has some pretty decent stats. For me, I prefer to run Frostburns and Godslayer, but again, it's up to you to which ones you would like to run here. Next, we are going to get Penitent Greaves for the damage multiplier against chilled enemies. Sadly, for our weapons, I did not unlock the Eagle Horn yet, which is the whole inspiration for this build. But if you have it, I would definitely put it on. You definitely want to get Condemnation for the increased damage to our core skills. And then moving on to our aspects, starting off with our defensive ones. I run the newly added Juggernaut passive, which gives us 8,000 armor, but your invade is increased by 100%. I think the trade-off is well worth it, as 8,000 is quite a bit, and it makes it really easy to cap out our armor. Besides that, I run these two aspects. Explosions from the Victimized key passive heals you, and this will be our main way of sustaining ourselves in battle. And then I just run Might for the damage reduction. Some of the key offense aspects we will be running is Icy Alchemist, allowing our Shadow imbuements to also do cold damage, and then we pair it with Penetrating Shot, With these two aspects in our key passive, this gives us insane AoE damage with our penetrating shot, and then I just run Vengeful offense aspect, and if you have the Eagle Horn, this is actually pretty easy to proc. However, I do not have one, so I just run a random aspect in my bow right now, but I would recommend to put Edge Master in here until you unlock all your uniques. As far as stats go, on the gear, we want to cap our resistance, and we could do this by getting resistance on our pants and chest. Our boots come with cold resistance, putting whatever gems you need in to help cap your resistance. After that, you want to make sure your armor is capped out at around 13k. Right now I have 6k, but I get additional 8k from our Juggernaut amulet, although it doesn't update until you're actually in combat. After that, you want to get some maximum life on your chest and pants. And then for our rings, I will go for crit chance and lucky hit chance, followed by vulnerability damage and crit damage. You definitely want to make sure you get as much lucky hit chance on your rings as possible, as our build revolves heavily on our lucky hit. On our weapons, we'll go for dexterity, core damage, vulnerability damage, and crit damage. On my setup for my Paragon tree, I focus heavily on defensive aspects, or not defensive aspects, I focus heavily on defensive nodes. Resilience gives us maximum life and resistance. And then the first glyph I run is Diminish, which grants us 125% bonus to all rare nodes within the range, such as Skillful and Lawless. So I get 450 armor from this one alone, and 45% increased damage plus 22 dex from Skillful. Plus, we also get 10% reduced damage from vulnerable enemies. And then for our first ward, we are going to go for Cheap Shot. And then we're going to get Safeguard as well as Oppress for the damage reduction and damage to crowd control. And then the next glyph we run is Ranger. I mainly got Ranger for the damage reduction while wielding a ranged weapon. We're also going to grab the two rare nodes around the glyph, which is Wiles and Devious. Again, damage to crowd control enemies and damage reduction from slowed enemies. Moving on to our next board, we are going to go with Exploit Weakness. On the way, we're going to grab some cold resistance, and then we're going to grab the legendary node, Exploit Weakness. This will help us with our single target damage against bosses. Moving on to our next board, we're going to go with No Witness with the Exploit glyph. Obviously, we're taking this glyph for the increased vulnerable damage. We don't really care for the additional bonus, which is guaranteed vulnerability. Once we have our Eagle Horn, this will become pretty irrelevant. But the 85% vulnerable damage is very good. For our next board, we're going to go with Lorana's Instinct, and then we're going to get Poison Resilience, followed by the Control Glyph, which gives us a damage multiplier against chilled enemies, and this effect is doubled against frozen enemies. And then for our last board, we're going to get Cunning Stratagem. I mainly got this for the Slayer node, which gives us extra armor. I'm not entirely sure how the legendary node works. Not sure if this applies to our penetrating shot or just apply to our imbuements and basic attack, but it's increased damage, so I just took it.